Welcome back. Today we're going to talk about adding and subtracting numbers in scientific notation. So let's say that I'm given three populations: the US population, the population of Canada, and the population of Mexico. And I want to find, and they're all given in scientific notation. For some strange reason, that's just how they're given, okay? For the purposes of this exercise, we'll say that it's given in scientific notation. Notice that the biggest one is the US population because its order of magnitude is 8 and it has a coefficient larger than that of Mexico, although they have the same orders of magnitude. Okay, find the combined population of all three countries. So I'm going to add these three numbers together. Now, the way that you want to do this, now, first of all, you can always go back to standard notation and add it in standard notation. So if you forget how to do this, although it's kind of obnoxious, you can always go back to standard notation, line up the zeros and add them that way, okay? But I'm going to show you a way to do it when they're in scientific notation. So the first thing you want to do is you want to make sure all of your numbers are of the same order of magnitude. Okay, when they're of the same order of magnitude, I can just add the coefficients, all right? Because the order of magnitude indicates what place value they are, right? So if these are both in the 100 millions, this is 300 million roughly, and this is like 100 million, and this is in the 10 millions, then what I want to do is make sure that everything's in the 100 millions, and then I can line up the coefficients. And then I'll know whatever I get, it's going to be in the neighborhood of 100 million. Okay, the one that's off here is the Canadian population. So for a minute, I'm going to switch this so it has an order of magnitude. Well, there's two things I can do. I can actually change the US and Mexico order of magnitude so that there's 7. Actually, why don't I go ahead and do that? So to reduce the order of magnitude here, I have to make the coefficient larger. So the US population becomes 31 times 10 to the 7th power, okay? And I'm going to line up the Canadian population so that the coefficients line up place value-wise. So I have 3.38 times, and I'm going to keep this as times 10 to the 7th, okay? And the Mexican population is going to be the same thing as 11 times 10 to the 7th. So notice, again, the coefficient and the exponent work in inverse relationship with each other. So if I make the coefficient larger, I've got to make the exponent smaller, or the order of magnitude smaller. So I'm going to leave this as 11.00, I'm going to put the zeros here too, times 10 to the 7th, okay? So now I have these three numbers, and I'm going to add the coefficients together. So here I only have a 10th and a 100th place in the Canadian population, so I'm just going to write the 0.38 like this. And now this ends up being 5 and 4. Okay, so we have 45.38 times, and now I'm going to keep the same order of magnitude. So really what I did was I made the US population, instead of being in the neighborhood of 100, let's see, 100, yeah, so 10 to the 6th power is a million, so 10 to the 8th power would be 100 million. So instead of keeping it into the neighborhood of 100 millions, I said that it's 31 10 millions, okay? And the Canadian population is 3.38 10 millions, and the Mexican population is 11 10 millions. So really all the 10 millions that we have together are 45.38 10 millions, okay? So that's the quick way to add in scientific notation. Now the number I got is not in scientific notation. So I'm going to have to decrease the coefficient and increase the power of 10. Okay, so I went left 1 here, so I add 1 to the coefficient. All right, and that's my answer. That's a quick way of doing that. Okay, if you are, let's say that we're trying to figure out how many more people are in the United States than Canada, so I want to subtract the Canadian population from the United States population, okay, I am going to do the same trick. Now let me think. I can either change the US population to be the same order of magnitude to Canada or vice versa. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the Canadian population to be in the same order of magnitude as United States. So this is the same thing as being 0. So what I want to do is I want to add a power of 10 to that order of magnitude. And so I'm going to decrease right here. So 3.338 times 10 to the 8th power. okay? And I'm going to line it up so I can complete the subtraction. So I have 3.1 times 10 to the 8th. Notice I give myself a little bit of space so that I can have the proper place value here. This is 0.338, and actually I didn't give myself enough space here. So let's keep the times 10 to the 8ths over here. Okay, and I'll add these zeros in here. There's no real reason why I put one in green and one in red, but, and then I'm going to borrow here. So this would be 10 by borrowing a 10 here, but actually I have to make, let's see. So if I make this 2, I would make this 11, but I need one here. So I'm going to make this 10. So that gives this to be 10 right here, but I actually need to borrow again to make this 10. Okay, so I'm finally ready to subtract. I have 10 minus 8 is 2, then this is 6, then that is 7, so it's 2.762 times 10 to the 8th. Okay, so think of times 10 to the 8th as like your 10 millions, right? Or 100 millions, right? So you have this many 100 millions, and then you have this many 100 millions. So when you subtract them, you should have this many 100 millions, okay? So it's like combining like terms when you had it in 7th grade. So you have 2.762 times 10 to the 8th amount of people. That's the difference between the US and Canada's population, okay? Now, if I were trying to do the US and Mexico, now they are already in the same order of magnitude. So here I can just line up the 3.1 and 1.1. Let's do the 10 millions here, 100 millions rather. And I can just go ahead and subtract them. This one's a lot easier. Okay, so the answer is 2.1 times 10. So the difference between the US population and the Mexican population is 2.0 times 10 to the 8th, or 200 millions, right? 200 million.